So, watch experience. So, as you might have noticed, I am in a much better mood and I'm much more relaxed than in yesterday's video, which is obviously because I slept the full 10 hours and luckily my parents are very nice, so I was allowed to stay home for today. We're going to talk about why I have too many fucking hobbies. Peace. So, we have a different setup going now. I got the microphone stand out of my room. I have many different hobbies. That might sound like a brag, but it's kind of not, because that just means I'm shitty at 15 different things that I do. I'm gonna put them in order of how well I do them, and depending on how long I've done them. This is such a fucking stupid video idea. The first one is I have terrible handwriting, so excuse me, please. Read what I'm writing. I guess, can you read it? I've been doing this for like my whole life, so I guess I'm pretty good at it. The piano is right here. I can demonstrate. This little guy. Now you can see me. I don't know if you could fucking hear that. Don't judge me. You can play the piano. You can't? I can. Shut the fuck. No, of course I do accept criticism. Oh fuck. Camera is right there, but I keep looking at the viewfinder. Which is just, you know, people do that. Get over it. So, piano. This is one of the things that I do best, so I'm going to give myself an A++. Drawing. Drawing and painting. Being an artist, if you will. Drawing. Like Dick. See? I'm a pioneer at art. Because I'm yet not very good at it. I'm not yet very good at it. Oh my fucking god, grammar. That could also be a hobby of mine, at least, and I would know how to fucking talk. American students write a lot of essays, but we don't really do that in Germany. I am in a very small part of the country where nobody speaks English. Nobody fucking speaks English here. Hochdeutsch. So High German. Which is pretty funny, and that's what most people speak around the country. So without a dialect that generally everyone can understand. Our state has its own language. Mostly the older generations that, although they also speak Hochdeutsch, which, yeah, and just have like a light accent that is close to the Plattdeutsch, it's called. So flat German. You know, most old people who know how to speak Plattdeutsch don't know how to speak English, so it's kind of funny, but they still speak a language which has a lot of relations to English. If you want an insult in Plattdeutsch, one that's very funny to me is, I completely fumbled that the first time, so I'm gonna repeat it now. Die haben sie wohl ne Brägen stellt und das Umrühren vergessen. Did they shit in your brain and forget to stir it? Schietbüdel. Which you use to describe your children. Babies. I don't know where the footage went of me translating it, but yeah, it's basically calling your children a bag of shit. I just thought about more of my Plattdeutsch repertoire, but I don't have anything, so we're just going to put that on the side shelves. And to come back to the point that I had earlier, is I'm going to give myself an A+ in English. Oh fuck. Like this? To Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. I don't even think that there is an English name for Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, which is like, it's the most northern east state. If you know something about history. But yeah, that's also a part that I don't see discussed in American history a lot, like even on history channels that discuss history from different parts of the world in general. I mean, the history classes in the USA are very USA-centric, which I guess is true for a lot of countries, but, you know, extremely US-centric in the US, but whatever. I don't think most Americans know about the split in Germany. Maybe they know that Germany was split in two at some point in history, but I don't think a lot of people are aware from the US because they also don't have any access to media in English about this topic. But there's a certain kind of flair and architecture that is connected, like that most people connect to the TLER, which is called the German Democratic Republic. So yeah, if you translate it into English, and it was a socialist country that was very extreme in the sense that it controlled its citizens extremely hard. Like it was a I think it was a, you could call it a totalitarian government. It was a one-party system, not communism or anything, and it was a I don't know how you call that. Yeah, but yeah, the people had a lot of, like, they didn't have a lot of supply for stuff just because there was no profit margin on or anything. There was no capitalist supply and demand. I guess that's what you call it in English. So the people didn't have a lot of new stuff compared to the BRD, the Republic of Germany, I guess. Um, they didn't have a lot of import foods because most of the time they weren't allowed to get the food just like in a political sense. They couldn't get food imported from non-socialistic countries, which I think they still did sometimes, but most of the time it wasn't. It was just from the other socialist countries. There was an organization for state safety, which was called Stasi, and they were very much an inhumane part of the state that controlled every part and aspect of their citizens. So nobody could say anything against the leadership of the country. Nobody was allowed to get out. People were dying trying to flee the country. It was not a lot of people who attempted after the war was closed in Germany. To the other side and all around, there were patrols everywhere. The whole country was being tightly secured, so nobody could get out. People wanted to get out because the grass was greener on the other side, and they couldn't travel far. They could just maybe sometimes travel to other socialist countries. They were part of this political affiliation, whatever. But the Stasi also incarcerated people who who they viewed as an enemy of the state. And the treatment of those prisoners was very inhumane. There were hours of interrogation and breaking down the prisoner mentally until they admitted that they were an enemy of the state. There were a lot of people who probably got killed because of their doings, because of the way they antagonized the state and wanted to like revolution change the order of the state and rebel. They were immediately taken out of the picture. And there were also people who, if they did go against the philosophy of the state or like the agenda of the state, they would be like, the tactics they used were gruesome. They were gross. It was like psychological breakdown, because of course if you don't want your citizens to rebel, the other citizens, you're not gonna beat down someone in public and then take them to be incarcerated. You're gonna, for example, what they did, they would take a person and then bring friends and family to gaslight them and they would make them lose their jobs. They would make them believe that they are not qualified for their jobs. They would, for example, there was a doctor who slightly antagonized the government, and her patients started saying that she was a bad doctor and that they didn't want her to practice on them. Then there was her friends that were starting to distance themselves from her, and then what they would actually do is break into people's houses while they were away and just fucking they would either throw everything to the ground and rip everything down so people would see, fuck, there's this, my safest place in this whole world was just trashed. There was someone in here and I don't know who it was, or maybe, yeah, they knew that it was the Stasi. But they would do a slow psychological breakdown of those people who rebelled against the state. Or on the other hand, sometimes they would also break in and just fucking switch around tea bags. They would take the tea and put a different flavor of tea there, or like maybe hide the salt shaker somewhere. So it was like a creepy, like a feeling that would creep up on you, a paranoia that you would develop. So the people at the end, like for example the doctor, even after the wall was broken down, after the borders were cleared, after the Democratic Republic was not existent anymore, these people were still heavily affected by that, and the doctor in question did kill herself 2 years or 4 years after after Germany was reunited, just because of the fact that she was so mentally broken down that she could just not function anymore as a living human being, which is insane. It's such a gruesome treatment of his own citizens just to project a good picture to the outside world. There were people like Stasi spies were all throughout the population. Like there were citizens that were official employees of the Stasi, and there were people who were unofficial employees. Sometimes they were just people who slightly antagonized the government or like fucked up in some way in their eyes, and they would just go to them and say, well, you see, you did that, and you know, if you don't want anything to happen, you could maybe be a spy for us. And there was no maybe, you know, you had to be a spy at that point if you didn't want to go to prison, or your family's life to be ruined. You had to cooperate. And there were people who actually who had to follow like other people around who were like EMs, were what they called, unofficial employees of the Stasi. And there were EMs all around the Republic. Later, when people could view the documents of the Stasi after Germany was reunited, they would see that maybe even some of their friends, some of their closest friends and co-workers were part of the Stasi and actively spied on them, and reported everything they did to the Stasi. Like most people in the German Republic and the Democratic German Republic were spied on by Stasi just to keep the state in order, to keep people from rebelling, and to, as soon as possible, kill off any sprouts of rebellion as soon as they started to come up. So yeah, it probably happened thousands of times that people expressed their dislike for the Democratic German Republic, and or the SED, the party that ruled over the country, as kind of a dictatorship. If someone, there were probably thousands of cases of people being betrayed by their friends and reported to the Stasi by their friends, and then ending up in prison or having to become a spy themselves. And you know, it's just an insane story, and it's kind of a bummer that no one, not no one, but a lot of people outside of Germany don't really know about these happenings and how severe the treatment of the citizens actually was. I mean, like, there was a lot of positive things about the Democratic German Republic, like for all the citizens in the small villages here, for example, the small city that I am living in right now. The DDR time was very jolly time for them, a very, very good time, even if they didn't have a lot of stuff, just because, you know, there was no homelessness, there was no unemployment, everybody was employed, even though that was also a problem because there were people who were employed just to keep up the employment rate at like 100% or whatever. And also, there were a lot of social care systems. So families had the right to a bigger home. They had a right to financial support from the state, which was all extremely cool. And there was also a good system around sport. The DDR had a lot of good, extremely good athletes and a lot of Olympic wins in the time that they were actually existent, which is pretty insane to think about. But that was just for the fact that the patriotic nature of the DDR was deeply ingrained into athletes, and there was a lot of promises um, with that came with becoming an athlete for the state, for fighting for the democratic German Republic in Olympia, for example. Like there was this motivation for money, there was the motivation for becoming a hero of the state, and there was also a lot of easy access to sport. There was barely anything you had to pay to get into sport clubs. You could play any sport anywhere, not anywhere maybe, but there was so many hobby associations that you could go to pursue most hobbies with very little charge or no charge at all, which is very different from today, but also is part of the reason why the DDR also were bankrupt at some point. They didn't have any money left, which maybe because of the fact that they couldn't probably take part in commerce and didn't profit a lot, and then also spent a lot of money on security of the state and on keeping the people happy in that system instead of like also trying to cooperate. So there were a lot of positive sides just in the philosophy of the state and the way that this system was set up, but there's also the problem of the financial aspect in the DDR, which inevitably led to their downfall and their bankruptcy, and also the aspect of the inhumanity of the treatment of people who rebelled against the state just for their because it was I don't know, right, of the dictatorship, because it was a dictatorship, like a one-party system where nobody really had a choice. On one side, the socialist agenda of treating everybody as equal and everybody having the same opportunities to life, was connected with the inhumanity of a dictatorship, which didn't work out well, obviously. An insane aspect that I forgot to mention was that there were actually German spies, like from the Democratic German Republic, that were sent to the other part of the country that were called Romeo spies. And basically, their direction was to make a woman connected to someone in power, or a woman in a position of power, to fall in love with them, even marry them, build a life with them, and have children, and then basically report back on their doings and what the other government is doing basically for their whole lives. There were cases of people who were married until the downfall of the DDR, and there were people who were fucking married, like spies, and had children, so that's kind of insane. But yeah, it's an interesting topic. It's said that a lot of schools outside of Germany don't go into that topic, but I guess it's more important to learn about your own country's history. And Germany as well is very, like, German history lessons are very German centric, of course, which is the case for every country, but also because of the Nazi era in Germany, which is important to learn about, very important. We have to learn from our mistakes, and we have to learn about all the tactics and talking points and the manipulation tactics, especially that were used by Nazi government and like under Hitler's direction, and to learn about the tragedies that people committed. Like, there are still Nazis in Germany today, but you are going to get, if you publicly defend Hitler or you publicly deny the Holocaust, you are going to get incarcerated. You're going to prison, or at least you're going to get fined. It's very hard to find employment if you defend Nazis, which may also be the case in the USA. But Nazism is very much represented in the US political belief system of like conservatives. And the problem is just that people don't recognize or connect. Like, people don't learn a lot about what Nazis actually believed and what they actually wanted to achieve. So they just know Nazis bad, Nazis somewhere there in Germany, maybe somewhere here too, like German fanatics that are Nazis. But they also have a lot of Nazi talking points, maybe in their surroundings, political beliefs, which a lot of conservative talking points also come very close to fascism and Nazism. But people don't recognize that because they don't learn about Nazism, at least uh, uh, only if they like educate themselves and learn themselves over the internet, or like do research themselves about Nazi talking points and what Nazis actually want to achieve. Like, people who have a very good historical education will like know about that and recognize Nazi talking points when they hear them. But a lot of like just regular citizens don't, because they don't get taught that in school, which like students get sensitized, I guess you could call it, like the opposite of desensitized. They get sensitized to these talking points so that they immediately recognize them when they hear them, which of course not all students will come out of the history lesson having that ingrained in their brain, because they just don't listen, for example. But they're like just the people who listen, and like the students who listen, a lot of people, even then later on in life, are very cognizant of this Nazi time, and even if they are conservative, they won't want to affiliate with Nazis, of course. Um, but there's more like a sensitivity in Germany for this topic and for these talking points. There are still Nazis and still people who are low-key Nazis. For example, there's the AfD, which is called the Alternative for Germany, if you could translate it, if you translate the acronym. And this party very much promotes Nazi ideals and very patriotic ideals, and is overall just filled with bad people, filled to the brim with bad people. They are very much against LGBTQ. They're against immigration. They want to, uh, like similar to Britain, they want to get out of the European Union. They want to step out, like leave the Union, which is fucking stupid, but they've wanted to do that for a long time. So yeah, a lot of talking points cater to Nazism also, that is still present in Germany. But yeah, I'm just like shocked how a lot of countries who have a fascist or a history with Nazism, like for example Japan, still don't have a great sensibility for like are not very cognizant of that time in their history. For example, I was very shocked to see that in Japan there are still cases of people doing a Nazi cosplay, even though Japan was heavily affiliated with Nazi Germany at the time. Um, and I was kind of confused because I thought maybe I just assumed that in history lessons that children were still very much sensitized towards that agenda and towards the fact that you like don't dress up as a fucking Nazi with a swastika. Yes, that's what you call it. With a swastika on your arm patch, which yeah, you just don't do that. In Germany, you would get fucking sent to prison if you do that in public. I was just very shocked that a lot of countries with that kind of history are not very sensitized to it. I can understand if the citizens of the US, like the regular citizens who don't have a giant interest for history, don't know much about Nazism and what was actually promoted in Nazism, what the agenda actually was. I don't know if the Buddhist culture is places of worship. Like, I guess it's just a philosophy of life, but there are also like places where Buddhists come together, or like places that Buddhists visit, like a Buddhist temple, for example. But yeah, Hitler took the swastika symbol from Buddhists, which was supposed to be a peace symbol, but Buddhists still understood that the swastika now meant something and had a gravity that didn't had the same meaning as their symbol anymore, and they stopped displaying it, I guess, in one Buddhist temple, for example. That's a sensitivity there. People, the Buddhist religion is widely sensitive to that, even if the symbol that they used was like stolen by a horrible person for his own agenda and for his own horrible doings. Just that you know that I don't think that everything I say is completely truthful. I mean, I am truthful.
Baby, you give me ice and fire. You're giving me